Begin with remarks from Chairman Atkins, followed by Commissioner Crenshaw, Commissioner Ueda, and Commissioner Peirce. Mr. Chairman.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much, Richard, and good afternoon to all of you here in our auditorium and online as well. So it's a great pleasure to be with you all today. Let me begin by thanking Commissioner Peirce and the Crypto Task Force for their organizing of today's event, and Commissioner Crenshaw and Commissioner Ueda for their participation as well. Of course, I very much thank all of you here on the roundtable, for panelists, and our moderator, Troy Paredes, for Commissioner Paredes, for your voluntary contribution of time and talent to this mighty endeavor that we're undertaking. So today's roundtable is entitled DeFi and the American Spirit. This is, I think, an apt title because the American values of economic liberty, private property rights, and innovation are in the DNA of DeFi, or decentralized finance, and the movement of that. Blockchains, of course, are a very creative and potentially revolutionary innovation that have us rethinking evidence of ownership and transfer of intellectual and economic property rights. They are shared databases that enable the ownership of a type of digital property called crypto assets without reliance on an intermediary or central party. Instead, these peer-to-peer networks incorporate an economic mechanism to encourage participants to validate and maintain the database in accordance with the network's rules. These are free market systems where users pay demand-based fees to network participants to have their transactions included within a so-called block of data with finite storage capacity. The prior U.S. government administration discouraged Americans from participating in these market-based systems by asserting through lawsuits, speeches, regulation, and threatened regulatory action that participants and staking as a service providers may be engaged in securities transactions. I'm grateful to the Division of Corporation Finance staff for clarifying its view that voluntary participation in proof of work or proof of stake network as a miner or a validator or staking as a service provider is not within the scope of the federal securities laws. As happy as I am over that step, this statement is not a duly promulgated rule with a force of law, so we cannot stop there. The Securities and Exchange Commission must adopt a regulation based on the authority that Congress has given us. Another core feature of blockchain technology is the ability of individuals to have self-custody of crypto assets in a personal digital wallet. The right to have self-custody of one's private property is a foundational American value that should not disappear when one logs on to the internet. I'm in favor of affording greater flexibility to market participants to self-custody crypto assets, especially where intermediation imposes unnecessary transaction costs or restricts the ability to engage in staking and other on-chain activities. Unfortunately, the prior administration undermined innovation in self-custodial digital wallets and other on-chain technologies by asserting through regulatory actions that the developers of such software may be conducting brokerage activity. Engineers should not be subject to the federal securities laws solely for publishing this type of software code. As one court put it, it would be irrational to hold the developer of a self-driving car liable, and here quoting from the court's decision, quote, for a third party's use of the car to commit a traffic violation or rob a bank. In those circumstances, one would not sue the car company for facilitating the wrongdoing. They would sue the individual who committed the wrong. And here just recently, the Supreme Court in a case regarding firearms underlined that particular sentiment. Many entrepreneurs are developing software applications that are designed to function without administration by any operator. The idea of self-executing software code that's accessible to everyone but controlled by no one, and that enables private peer-to-peer transactions may sound like science fiction. But blockchain technology makes possible an entirely new class of software that can perform these functions without an intermediary. I do not believe that we should allow a century-old regulatory framework to stifle innovation with technologies that could upend and, most importantly, improve and advance our current traditional intermediated model. We should not automatically fear the future. These on-chain self-executing software systems have proven to be resilient in the face of crises. While centralized platforms wavered and failed under recent stresses, many on-chain systems continue to operate as designed, pursuant to open source code. Most current securities rules and regulations are premised on the regulation of issuers and intermediaries, such as broker-dealers, investment advisors, exchanges, and clearing agencies. The drafters of these rules and regulations likely did not contemplate that self-executing software code might displace such issuers and intermediaries. I've asked the Commission staff to explore whether further guidance or rulemaking may be helpful for enabling registrants to transact with these software systems in compliance with applicable law. I'm also excited about the use of on-chain software systems by issuers and intermediaries to eliminate economic frictions, increase capital efficiency, enable new types of financial products, and enhance liquidity. Current securities regulations already contemplate the use of new technologies by issuers and intermediaries, but I've asked the staff to go further and to consider whether amendments to the Commission's rules and regulations would be better suited to provide needed accommodation for issuers and intermediaries to seek to administer on-chain financial systems. So while the Commission and its staff work to propose fit-for-purpose rules of the road for on-chain financial markets, I've directed the staff to consider a conditional exemptive relief framework, or let's call it an innovation exemption, that would expeditiously allow registrants and non-registrants to bring on-chain products and services to market. An innovation exemption could help fulfill President Trump's vision to make America the, quote, crypto capital of the planet, unquote, by encouraging developers, entrepreneurs, and other firms that are willing to comply with certain conditions to innovate with on-chain technologies in the United States. So with that, thank you all very much for your attention, and thanks again to the participants for what I anticipate to be a really good give and take on the panel. And Troy, keep them in line and get all the best ideas out. But thank you all very much, and have a good afternoon.
Good afternoon. As we begin the final event of this Crypto Task Force series, I think this is a good opportunity to reflect on what has come out of these roundtables and where the task force and the Commission are going from here. These roundtables have highlighted that crypto is far from a monolith. We have heard a markedly diverse set of viewpoints from many different segments of the industry. We have heard, for example, from many non-SEC registered entities with varying views on whether they or their products should be required to register and be subject to SEC jurisdiction. I expect that this will be a key theme of today's DeFi panel. Back in November of 2021, I wrote an article detailing my views on the opportunities and challenges of DeFi, which I believe require industry and regulatory collaboration to develop compliant solutions. The issues I raised in that article related to market structure, transparency, and retail investor protection, among others, and still remain questions today. So I look forward to hearing the panelists' views on how we should approach these challenges. Beyond issues related to registration and jurisdictional lines, other roundtables have focused on current SEC registrants who want to continue operating under SEC oversight, but with altered regulatory requirements tailored to new types of products and technologies. In addition to these varied and sometimes competing regulatory views, we've heard different opinions on the technologies underlying digital asset products and services. We've heard panelists highlight advantages or disadvantages of particular technologies and give differing predictions on their capabilities to function effectively as part of a large, complex securities market. In sum, these roundtables have given us a lot to grapple with, to say the least. While the series was billed as a spring sprint towards crypto clarity, I am unsure whether we've identified much can be simply or quickly clarified. When it comes to crypto, it does not appear to me that the SEC is facing problems with ready or easy solutions. What we are facing is heightened expectations of rolling out major changes quickly to pave the way for crypto expansion into the capital markets. With issues this complex and stakes this high, it's better to do it right than fast. We need to grapple with the tough questions through the legally sanctioned process of formal rulemaking, as Chairman Atkins mentioned, with the full opportunity for notice and comment and public interest findings. I look forward to engaging with my fellow commissioners, the staff, and the public on what I hope will be a thoughtful and mission-driven rulemaking process for this space. Thank you to all for the roundtables you put on, all the work, and thank you all for being here today. Appreciate it.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you to the panelists and all the attendees today for the Commission's fifth roundtable organized by the Crypto Task Force entitled DeFi and the American Spirit. Reflecting on the American spirit brings to mind the expedition of Meriwether Lewis and William Clark about 220 years ago. On May 14, 1804, Lewis and Clark set out to explore the new Louisiana Territory, purchased the prior year by President Thomas Jefferson. The size of the United States had doubled overnight, but there were no reliable maps or established routes through the new land. Despite this daunting challenge, Lewis and Clark entered the wilderness to carry out their mission. While not nearly as fraught with personal danger, the Commission is similarly navigating through challenging new terrain and plunging into the regulatory wilderness under the leadership of Commissioner Peirce and the Crypto Task Force. While the Commission's tools, we don't use wagons and rope and pickaxes, but instead are things such as roundtables, public consultation, and economic analysis may be different. I am confident that our expedition can succeed in updating our rulebook to open up new opportunities for American investors and businesses. The SEC's treatment of decentralized finance and other emerging technologies over the past 4 years was not conducive to regulatory transparency and discouraged entrepreneurs and those developing DeFi from engaging with the Commission. However, that approach has recently changed under the Crypto Task Force, which is charged with coordinating the Commission's efforts to find answers to many pressing questions. Thus far, they have changed the SEC's posture on crypto, embraced difficult regulatory questions, and promoted transparency by engaging with market participants, driving innovation and change. This SEC is committed to high-quality regulation. High-quality regulation takes time, and administrative processes matter. For those who are involved in the development of DeFi, please be patient and work with the Commission and its staff towards achieving the best possible outcome. Although I am uncertain as to what the perfect regulation may look like, the path towards it begins with seeking input from the public. This journey towards regulatory clarity will likely be frustrating and may move in fits and starts. However, by learning from DeFi innovators and advocates, the Commission has a better chance at regulating securities transactions involving DeFi and protecting American investors who utilize decentralized financial services and products. Today's participants will provide knowledge and insight about DeFi's development and the existing regulatory barriers preventing growth. Such contributions will help the Commission attempt to strike the proper balance between its role as a regulator and its mandate to foster competition, efficiency, and capital formation. In DeFi, there is a landscape of new opportunities. People can transact directly with each other without relying on banks or other centralized intermediaries. The Commission should not refrain from engaging in oversight of novel areas simply because it involves thinking outside the existing framework. The legacy regulatory regime under the federal securities laws presupposes the existence and necessity of numerous intermediaries. I look forward to hearing from today's panelists as to whether such presumptions remain necessary. For example, in what types of situations do DeFi systems and smart contracts potentially eliminate the need for a financial intermediary, and how? In what situations should DeFi systems be deemed to fall outside the scope of the securities laws? What key safeguards are necessary when the securities laws apply to these arrangements? Lewis and Clark's journey lasted over 2 years and carved out an important path to facilitate westward expansion. In doing so, they provided a valuable contribution to American progress. Today's roundtable reflects the SEC's commitment to continued progress and its willingness to consider the roles of emerging technologies. As the Commission continues to move through the regulatory wilderness, it should remain true to its mission of protecting investors, maintaining fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitating capital formation in its efforts to respond to market innovation. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the conversation.
Okay, we're almost there. We didn't bring you guys here to listen to us, but I do want to welcome everyone who's watching, and I want to thank Chairman Atkins, Commissioner Crenshaw, and Commissioner Ueda for your remarks. And of course, I'm excited to be here for our final roundtable, DeFi in the American Spirit. Thank you, Troy, for coming back and joining us. We thought you did a fantastic job the first time around, so it's great to have you back with us again. We have high expectations based on your last performance. And thank you to all the panelists for taking the time to join us today. Over the past 4 months, the task force has held roundtables on security, status, trading, tokenization, and custody. These roundtables have provided invaluable input for the Commission and the task force and the rest of the staff here. It's informed our views and has improved our efforts and will continue to do so. The task force has hit the ground running in this sprint, as you've heard, but I do think that it's more likely to lead to a marathon toward regulatory clarity. I hope that it doesn't take as long as Lewis and Clark did with their expedition. I don't want to be doing this for 2 years, but I hope that we can make some progress, and I know that all of you will help us in making that progress. So you may be asking, what business does the SEC have in talking about regulating DeFi? Absolutely none is a reasonable answer. So maybe we should just stop now and go home. But as you know, it's Washington, and so we can't do things that fast. We have to, it's not that simple. Even getting to know regulation requires some talking, and that's what we're going to do today. What is DeFi? Bitcoin is decentralized finance, but it may not be what first comes to mind when you think about that topic. If we trust Google, it says that DeFi is a blockchain-based financial system that aims to replace traditional financial institutions with peer-to-peer transactions and smart contracts. It brings to mind decentralized networks which enable people to trade tokens and derivatives, engage in lending, or participate in prediction markets. Although sometimes referred to as DeFi platforms, DeFi is not a place people go to access services that someone else provides and controls. It's software code that people use to engage in the activity of transacting without a centralized intermediary. So we're to channel one of today's panelists, I do not go to a decentralized exchange, I make a decentralized exchange. Thank you, Peter, for that. DeFi defies our traditional permissioned world of intermediaries. It enables a person to engage with her peers through a protocol that is open to everybody on the same transparent terms. No need to get consent from any centralized gatekeeper. At its core, DeFi, which blockchain technology enables, is about the freedom to transact with your peers without permission, interference, or intermediation. And that is why DeFi resonates so deeply with the American spirit. Also resonant with the American spirit is the ability of people to publish written material without permission. Code is protected speech. Because the First Amendment protects someone who writes a DeFi software protocol and publishes it, the SEC has no authority to demand pre-publication approval rights, even for code that could be used to exchange securities. The SEC must not infringe on First Amendment rights by regulating someone who merely publishes code on the basis that others use that code to carry out activity that the SEC has traditionally regulated. If somebody else subsequently violates the law using the software protocol, the user, not the developer of the software, should face the music. But sometimes the writer of a protocol used to exchange securities does more than merely publish it. She might also operate, administer, or maintain a platform through which the code can be accessed and that takes custody of client assets or makes execution decisions for clients. In this and other instances, the coder or her platform might be subject to regulation for that conduct. If that conduct relates to securities, the SEC might have a role to play. I think it might be helpful to think about this in context of an enforcement case that the Commission brought 7 years ago, and that was its case against Zachary Coburn. That was a settled case, so we don't have the advantage of a court having wrestled with these facts, and the order is actually pretty sparse in detail. But Coburn developed the code for Ether Delta in exchange for ERC-20 tokens. And under the Exchange Act, the SEC charged Coburn with causing Ether Delta's violation of the requirement to register as a securities exchange per Section 5 of the Exchange Act. Although, again, the details are pretty sketched out pretty lightly in that settlement order. I think there are some facts that could help spur discussion on which types of activities the SEC should reach. Coburn was the only person with the ability to alter the Ether Delta smart contract, as he was the only person with access to the private key for the administrator account, which could be used to change the permissible fees for transacting using Ether Delta, or the address to which of the account to which those fees were then directed. The order book sat on a centralized server that was maintained by Ether Delta rather than on the Ethereum blockchain itself. So maybe some food for conversation at the panel today. Centralized entities that use DeFi protocols that someone else wrote to serve clients don't get a regulatory pass, of course. They can use that tool as much as they can use other kinds of tools. And centralized entities can't avoid regulation simply by rolling out the decentralized label. There's such a thing as DINO, decentralized in name only. With centralized entities, of course, comes the potential for fraud, conflicts of interest, principal agent problems, information asymmetries, and other issues that are common in traditional finance. And so those are the issues actually that DeFi was designed to address. But if you are dealing with centralized entities, that might be where the SEC's efforts are best spent, protecting investors not from their own use of open source software code to engage in transactions with their peers. We also don't need to protect them from writers of code, but from providers of financial services. I hope that today's discussion will help us to ensure that SEC regulation is able to reach activities and entities properly within its ambit, regardless of what label they bear, without prohibiting the exercise of individuals' rights to publish code and interact with that code. So now I'll hand it off to Troy. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.